Hi, y'all. Happy Wine Wednesday. Hey, Jenny,
Happy,
how are you?
hey, happy Wine Wednesday. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Doing great as well.
Awesome. Well, we are super excited to be with you guys today. We're going to talk to you about
Yeah.
one of my favorite topics, which is how to romanticize your life. But as
Mhm.
always, before we dig into that, we're going to get into the wine. And this week, we actually picked a very fitting pairing. And I will admit to you, I'm not that organized. It just sort of happened by happenstance. We're drinking a very nice bubble today. So it fits in really nicely with how to be romantic and romanticize your life. We are doing Louis Boulet. And this actual vintner and the vineyard was founded in 1877. For those of you who don't know, Champagne is a very old way of making wine. It's been around forever. It's what kings and queens used to drink. So this was it's nestled in a little village in the heart of Côte d'Orby. Um, what I love about this is many things, but first and foremost, this is what's called a Cremant. It's not a true champagne because it's not made in the Champagne region. But a Cremant is going to be done in the same style as a traditional champagne. It's going to be done method champenois. So this one's going to be really elegant. And this one is a Champagne de Bourgogne, which means that it's from the Burgundy region, which Burgundy is quite literally my favorite wine on the planet, like both red and white. I'm obsessed with it. So this one is just really beautiful, super high value. I think it's $25, which is unheard of for something of this quality. On the nose, you get a little bit of like a floral thing going, and you can definitely, the bubbles are like semi-aggro, so you can smell it. And on the palate, it's super lively. It's about, to my palate, it's medium bodied, but I think some people might think that it's on the larger body side. It's really harmonious. You're going to get a little bit of red fruit, a little bit of citrus, and it's just such a freaking well executed, well balanced wine. Highly recommend if you're going to a party and you want to bring something that is going to pass the smell test and be and perceived as really elegant for a really low price. Like normally to get this kind of effect, you would have to spend on champagne like upwards of $60, leaning into 160 and then onward and upward. So this is such a good value. Any Cremant is going to be that way, but this specific producer is one of my favorites. If you're looking for a champagne alternative, always suggest Cremant de Bourgogne or a Cremant de Loire. Both of them are going to be really elegant to me. I like the Cremant de Bourgogne a little bit better, but alas, you can pick and choose and just test things out. Funny fact, Tamisha, I showed this. So my whole family, they're all like wine snobs, if you will.
Okay.
And my sister-in-law particularly, because she doesn't drink very often. So when she does, she wants to like make it count. And I showed her like a Cremant de Bourgogne when we were on vacation last, and she was like, "What is this sorcery?" So now she's
That's
like,
so funny.
super obsessed.
No,
So
she's obsessed.
I join her in her obsession. And this is what I always bring for people who like, if I'm not trying to like pull out the big stops of a bubble, like somebody who maybe like
Mhm.
wants to learn about wine, but they're not like that obsessed and they're fine drinking like whatever, I'll bring this because it's gonna blow their socks off.
Uh-huh. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you. Definitely when I'm thinking of romanticizing my life, or I am doing it, I imagine myself with a glass of bubbles. So definitely
Always
on brand.
bubbly for everything. All right.
Everything.
Okay. So speaking of romanticizing your life, let's chat about your week last week, Mish. What was your
Yes.
rose and what was your thorn?
Okay, yes, my rose. I know I touched on it last week. I think I said that I went to the US Open, but I actually went 3 more times throughout this week. And it was so much fun, let me tell you. And I'm actually going tomorrow as well.
Wait,
But
so how does that work? Do you have to like buy a pass to get in, or do you get tickets every time you
so
go?
yeah, so the first week it's called Fan Access Week, so it's actually free. So you could go in and they have like the qualifying matches. The like main matches and like the first round started on Monday, this past Monday. So starting Monday, you had to pay for a ticket to get in. And you could go either, you could get a day pass or a night pass. And if you look, you can find some like reasonably more affordable seats. They may not be that great, but still get you in, into, the stadium, and then also like all the other surrounding courts. So yeah, so starting on Monday, you have to get a ticket and pay. But like I said, last week it was free.
Love
So
it.
yeah, we were
Pro
going.
tip, y'all.
Yes, yes. Definitely doing this every year now. It was so fun because you get to see actually all of like the really good players practice. And we were actually courtside with them, which is really cool. We were like in the front row while they were practicing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then and like all like the little like shops are open. So you could go shopping. You could it's called a honey juice, and that's the signature drink of the US Open. And it's actually a funny story. So last year, my boyfriend went and I wasn't able to go with him. And I told him, I was like, can you please like get one of the drinks and get like one of the cups that it comes in? Because it's like a whole thing that when you go, you have to get one of these drinks. And he thought he had no idea what I was talking about.
Oh
So we
my
went
God.
to the gift shop
Poor Chris.
and literally bought every single cup or glass that they sold because he thought that's what I was talking about. So when you come over to my house, you will see there is a lot of US Open glasses and like reusable cups.
Well, we love an
I know, it's
overachiever. So thanks, Chris, for
Exactly.
going above and beyond.
Yes, exactly. Every type of cup you can imagine we have now from the US Open. But it's actually kind of on the topic of empowered women, this US Open is actually the 50th anniversary of equal pay for women, participating in tennis. So it's actually really cool to like be there and see like all the action behind it.
I'm definitely going to come up and go with you like
Yes.
one of these years, putting it on
You
my
have to.
calendar.
Yes, you have to. You'll have so much fun. And it really gets you into tennis too. Like now I'm obsessed. Like I'll watch like every match. But you learn a lot also. And then my thorn is, so actually last week on Wednesday on our last podcast, you guys know my huge obsession of Miami Heat player Jimmy Butler. He was actually at the US Open while we were on our podcast. And it was actually like one of the only nights that we didn't go. My boyfriend sent me like his Instagram story, and it's like him, like, he was actually like playing like one of the top players. And he was like, look at what we're missing. So that is my thorn of the week. I'm hoping that maybe he'll be there tomorrow because he's like really good friends with Carlos Alcaraz, who is like the top #1 player. And he has a match tomorrow, so I'm hoping that he'll be there for it. He's in New York right now, so we're like stalking him.
We're going to send all the vibes that Mish gets to see Jimmy Butler because it's our fault that she didn't get to see him last week. So everyone send vibes.
Thanks. What about you?
Okay, for me, yeah, so I went to a really fun bachelorette party this past weekend, and it was kind of like a unique take on a bachelorette party, like not any of like the traditional, drinking, clubbing, etc. We actually like really didn't even drink that much. Like it was fun. Like we went to Broken Bow, Oklahoma, which is right on the northern border of Texas. A lot of really beautiful rolling hills, trees, lakes, you name it. And we did like a camp batch. And we all made like t-shirts and bracelets and like just uniforms. And then we did like a field day where we broke out into teams and we competed against each other. We went kayaking and I totally ate it on the river and like got like flipped over out of my kayak and like drug across the riverbed. And I was like, this is why we can't have nice things. So that was really fun, but like all of it, like as a whole was super fun. The thorn was Broken Bow, Oklahoma is literally in the middle of nowhere. So, I had to visit a client in Houston the day before, and I had to drive from Houston to Broken Bow, which is 6 hours. And then before I left, I called my other client and was like, hey, do you need me to come on the back end to visit you next week? Because we're in the throes of tax season. And he was like, yeah, totally would love for you to do that. Like we have a couple of the things that we need to get done, So then I drove with my best friend who lives in Houston from Houston to Broken Bow and left with her because I was like, well, I got to go back anyway. And then while I was on the trip, the client was like, let's actually just do this virtually. So then I had to drive all the way back to Houston and then get in the car and drive the additional 3 hours to Austin.
Oh my gosh.
So it sucked.
Driving.
But
yeah.
It was fun. It was fun. Good thing for podcast.
Podcast. Did you actually like camp in tents? Or did you guys like have a house?
No. We like glamped. We had like a cabin thing. And, you know, I used to camp when I was young, but I am too old, y'all. I can't do it anymore. Like, it's not for me. I realized like when I got out of the kayak, I was like, I love nature, but I like being like nature adjacent. Like I'm a city girl through and through. I was like, that was not it. Like literally getting drug around on the bottom of the river. And then I didn't know this either, but the flies in Oklahoma bite you. So I got bit like a ton of times and that was not it.
Oh, no.
Well, anyways, Mish, as is you're right, because you're the quote queen. Walk us through this week's quote. I think it's a really good one, considering what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, that's why, I picked it. I was like, oh, this is perfect. So this week's quote is, once she stopped rushing through life, she was amazed how much more life she had time for. And this is one of the little like topics we'll get to later on, but I just thought it was a really fitting quote, for this week.
Yeah, I love that. And honestly, okay, so the way that Misha and I came upon this topic, we were collaborating like we always do and trying to figure out what we could chat with you guys about. And the concept of romanticizing your life is something that I think has caught a ton of traction of late.
Yeah.
But for me, it's been something that I've either cognitively or uncognitively been doing for a really long time, just because I think that it really does bring me happiness. And over the years, I've really tuned in to what those tactical things that I'm doing day in and day out actually look like. And putting them on paper so that I can share them with people. Because honestly, if you ever find yourself in a rut, I think doing a few of these things can really help you to feel, not only be grounded in your gratitude for your life, but also just like get a kick out of yourself and like giggle at random stuff and just feel like, I don't know, just putting yourself in a position where you feel like your life is elevated, because sometimes we can get so run down in what's mundane and what's routine that we forget to really seize these other opportunities to bring more life into it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So with that said, yeah. So with that said, I think the first really tactical tip or thing that I try to do, and I know Mish does this as well, is essentially figuring out where I can integrate elegance into my life. Meaning, what can I do to make this a little bougier, if that makes sense? And that's not always tied to like monetary things. Sometimes it's tied to what you can do to set your space, to make your space better. But some things that I personally do, and this is going to be unique to you guys. So you'd have to kind of like think about this a little bit and figure out what it is that makes you tick, right? So for me, I like to use satin sheets and silk pillowcases sometimes because it feels extremely luxurious. And that's something that I can get for a really good deal on Amazon at my home. Or maybe I want to indulge in something a little bit nicer. It just depends on what the budget is at the time. I also like to use pillowcase spray. It just feels like you're in a hotel when you do that. You know, when you walk into like a spa or a hotel and you're just like surrounded by scents.
Yeah.
I love
I use that too every night.
Yeah, you do? That's amazing. I like the lavender one.
I love lavender too.
And then, some other things that I do is like I'll opt for the fancy oat milk for my coffee if I want to make like a nice latte, or if I just want to use like, for the season, if I want to do pumpkin spice, or I want to do salted caramel, or maybe there's an elevated one that I don't typically splurge for because it's too expensive, but I want to for this day because I want to indulge. I'll do that. Obviously, it's no secret that I'm a wino. So one of the first things that I did when I started getting into wine was I really elevated my glassware. Right now, I'm literally using a throwaway glass, so that's hilarious if that's happening. But
that's funny.
There are specific wine glasses that optimize specific wines. And so I went through and I bought all of those types of wine glasses for the wines that I'm going to drink because I want to experience it and I want to immerse myself. So that's been something, I mean, it just gives you like a little bit of a joy injection, if you will. And I've talked before about how happiness is fleeting, but joy can be made in the moment, and it's something that you can take control of. So I try to do little things here and there to essentially make my life more elegant on a day-to-day basis so that I can feel like I'm indulging and I can exude, little moments of joy from those decisions that I can make.
Definitely. And I can send you a set of US Open wine glasses if you want to answer your question.
Please, Mish. I've been dying for that for so long.
One thing I must say is, I love, what Jenny's saying, how, every day just kind of like elevate your life and make it more elegant. And it doesn't take a lot of money sometimes. So I actually bought, like, to your like coffee point, is I actually bought like a frother, and every morning, like, I'll use it, like I'll put my oat milk in there, and then it just like makes it, I feel like it tastes like 100% better when I use it in the frother. And it's just like a little extra something. Or one thing that I like to do is like get dressed up every day. I feel like that, changes my mood and just like makes me like a whole other person. And I actually remember, like, when I was in my career before this, I used to dress up, every day, no matter what. I remember once, like someone was like, "Why do you dress up every day? Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, it just like makes me feel good. And also, like, I feel that just like elevating yourself to the life that you want to live. I was like looking forward, like imagining how I wanted my future to be, and I'm showing up at that person.
I love that. It's look good, feel good, right? Like that's
It
such,
is, yeah.
I mean, it's massive. That's a lot of people, abide by that, live by that. I do that as well. It's really hard to strive for that during COVID times, I feel like, because it definitely transitioned all of us into like, let's wear our pajamas and let's wear our yoga pants. But sometimes if you just take the time to actually get ready, even if you're not going anywhere, it just makes you feel better throughout the day. And I found that to be true for myself as well. And I feel like that really leads into one of the most important tenets in my mind when it comes to romanticizing your life is not thinking that every single moment in your life has to be this like big sweeping big deal, right? Much of your life is going to be lived in the mundane moments. So I've made it a habit over the past several years to really make sure that I'm amplifying the mundane. And doing what I can to extract the beauty in it. So some examples for me is I'm a walker. Like I love to go on walks. I try to go on a walk every single day, although it's been really difficult this summer because it's been hellaciously hot. But anyways, I love to walk. And when I go on a walk, I really try to be present in that moment. Usually I'm listening to a podcast or some music that I love. But I'll really try to ground myself in all of my senses, and I'll be like, wow, look at those beautiful flowers. I never took the moment to actually look at those and appreciate the beauty in them. Or like hummingbirds, right? Like it's a miracle to see a hummingbird. They're so beautiful. They're so peaceful. They're flying around you. But this is something that can be achieved by going on a walk, which is such a mundane activity that we do day in and day out. Another thing, it kind of goes to the mind shift that we've talked about before on here, where it's like, you don't have to do things, you get to do things. So sometimes you can have a really bad attitude about like, oh, I don't necessarily want to exercise or move my body or do whatever. So when I feel myself like slipping into that headspace, I'm just grateful that my body's able to take me places, right? Because what's the alternative? Like that's not something I want to think about. And I think too, like listening. So I love podcasts. I love them. I also love music. I grew up in a very musically inclined family. I'm like such a crazy person when it comes to music. Like I don't just like listen passively. I'd like digest it and I'm dissect it and figure out like, what is the meaning behind this? And I listen to the compilation and the lyrics and the whole nine. So sometimes it's just really nice whenever I'm doing something that I perceive as mundane, whether it's like chores or whatever, I just create this whole like montage, if you will, in my brain of like, well, I've already selected or curated this podcast for like this really annoying chore that I have to do. Or I want to listen to this album because you guys, before, Spotify and Shuffle was a thing, like we used to listen to albums. And I'm a huge proponent for listening to an album through and through. And so I love the ritual of doing that. when I'm doing something that's otherwise pretty mundane.
Okay, yeah. I also feel like this ties in to kind of like the tip of like slowing down and taking it all in. Just like you were saying, like when you're on a walk, you're appreciating the little things more. I think, sometimes in life we get so busy, so hectic that we're not really taking time to slow down and enjoy those little things. So I think once you do that, you appreciate, life so much more and, kind of see it through a different lens.
Absolutely. Honestly, you're setting yourself up for disappointment and failure if you think that every single thing that happens in your life that's good is going to be this like massive vacation or this massive party. Like you have to learn to love the day-to-day moments in your life and figure out what you can do to lift those up and amplify them. And one of the tools that I've used, just kind of like leading into our next tactical tip, if you will, one of the tools that it took me a really long time, especially on the financial side, to do was making sure that I could craft my own like personal aesthetic in my surroundings. Honestly, you guys, like most of us work from home. We're home all the time. Like I used to be so crazy and say like, oh no, I can't replace, like this ratty furniture that I've had for forever, or these like the comforter or the bed that I've had forever. I can't replace any of those things. Or it feels frivolous to buy things that are going to, that are just aesthetically pleasing and not functional. And I'm definitely not saying that you should do that all at once, but there are so many, for me, what I do, I always create a vision board, whether it's using Instagram or Pinterest or any of those apps that can kind of show you an aesthetic or a vibe. And then I create like a mood board or a vision board of like what it is that I'm looking for. And I pin things. And then from there, I have a wish list, right? That's what it's acting as, a certified wish list. And then I start to be crafty around that, right? I shop smart, I thrift, I use Facebook Marketplace. Another thing that's been really effective for me from a financial perspective is, I'll just give you an example. A couple months ago, there's this really cute boutique in my house. And I have like a really long living room. It's kind of like awkward where the couch has to be like off the window. So there's this gap between the back of the house and the couch. And it's always like driven me nuts. And I wanted a couch table to put back there, but I didn't want to buy like a cheap POS to put back there. I wanted like a really nice couch table that would exemplify the living room. So I went to this boutique around the corner from my house and I was like, oh God, that one is so gorgeous, but it's out of my budget. And it's, fiscally irresponsible for me to buy it. So then I was like, all right, well, it's more than I can afford. So what am I going to do? I'm going to set a goal from a business perspective or a saving perspective or a money-making perspective, where when I hit that threshold, I can go purchase that. And I do that all the time with things that I absolutely love. That might be higher quality or a little bit more expensive. And I was actually able to, because I hit some of my goals in my business this past quarter. So I was able to go purchase that yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Literally, it's so funny. I was like laying in bed last night and Mitch came and knocked on the door because he was watching TV. And he was like, hey, I have something really, really important to show you. Hurry up. It's like really, it could be really bad. And I was like, what? Because I'm like in bed in my cozies, like about to fall asleep. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, come out here. And so I went out there and he was like looking at the living room and how good it looks because we finally have everything in place. And he was like, look at what we've created. Like, look how cozy it is in here. Look how comfortable it is in here. Like, you did that. And it just felt good. Like, it's just like sitting there fully content because I'm in an environment that I love being in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And let me tell you guys, Jenny had the greatest taste. I'm always like texting her, asking her for her opinion. And I love her home. And it's decorated fabulously. I just love it.
Oh, you're sweet.
Good taste. Yeah.
It's definitely a labor of love.
Yeah. But I do the same thing. So what I'll do is kind of like create my own like little wish list. And what I'll do is like some of like the major holidays, like next weekend, like I know that there will be really good sales. So that's when I'll try to like buy like those bigger items that I know that don't normally go on sale, but I can get a good deal during those major holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. And shopping smart, especially if you want appliances, Labor Day, Memorial Day, great time to buy. Same thing with furniture too. If you want to do patio furniture, it's great to buy that, later in the year. after the summer has already passed. And there's really good deals to be had. There's ways to get crafty around budget. And I don't want you guys to think that all of these tips are like leaning into, a financial obligation, because that's not always the case. There are some tips that we're going to get to that are completely non-financial. But these are just things that I've cultivated over the years that have really helped me. And the next one is kind of funny because it crept up on me. And it's really like leaning into and nurturing like my inner creative side. I'm an attorney and I'm extremely logical, and that has kind of run my life. And that's been my self-perpetuating narrative for my entire life. And with that comes, well, I'm not creative at all. That's just not true. We're all creative. You just have to find what your outlet is and how you're creative within that outlet. And like literally, I discovered last week a new creative outlet that I hadn't availed myself to before. We were getting ready to go to this bachelorette party. And my best friend was like, oh yeah, I found this like poster on TikTok where you can like draw basically the agenda for the entire bachelorette party, but you don't write out the agenda, you draw the agenda out with like.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it was like brunch. So we drew like bacon and eggs and avocado toast and mimosas, etc. And then like one of the activities was like, we're going kayaking. So we drew like a kayak and a swimsuit. One of the other activities was like, we're going on a tiki tour. So we did like tiki and like drew a boat and like did all the things. Like they did 2/3 like Friday and Saturday. And then they were like, oh, we've got to go tomorrow. We haven't finished Sunday and I haven't packed, etc. And I was like, well, I'll take a stab at it. I've never I haven't drawn anything since I was in kindergarten, but hey, here we are. Let's give it a whirl. And like when I tell you that I sat down at that table and drew for the rest of the evening, and I don't think it was amazing. Like it looked good, but it was so therapeutic for me to like sit there and teaching your hands something new, right? This is not something that I would do on a day in and day out basis. So I really enjoyed that. And now I'm like, hey, Mitch, we should buy coloring books. Like I want to start drawing more. I want to start doing, more creative things.
Yeah. You should buy those adult coloring books.
Yeah. There's like, honestly, they're so much fun. And then we also made friendship bracelets.
Oh, those are so cool.
Yay, T-Swift.
Yeah.
Thanks for the nod back to the 90s.
But no, I agree, because I'm the same way. So I like, in my, position as a financial advisor every day, it's math, and never really thought I was creative. And it's like, because when I was younger, I used to love to draw. And I remember waking up before school, like super early every day, just to go in front of the TV and put on like this little like painting show that they used to have. And I would do it, every day before school. I remember. And now, I mean, I really am not artistic though. I must say, like, I can't really draw anything. And for some reason, my handwriting also sucks. And I'm trying to like fix that, because I really want to have like a nice like handwriting that I could draw out things. But I kind of get like my creative side, I feel like, through like clothes and like fashion and putting that stuff together. And also, like you were saying, like designing like my home and things that I want in it. So that's kind of like how I tap into my creative side.
I love that. And I think too, it's funny because we've talked here before about morning routines and how I think they're overrated. But I really, really, really love rituals. And one of the things that I do whenever I'm trying to, vamp up the romanticism in my life, if you will, is build like more enchanting rituals. So for me, that's like any small ritual that's going to create or heighten a sense of wonder, kind of bring you back to your childhood. So for me, that's like a couple things that I do as a ritual is I like to journal, because it keeps me in, and I'm not religious about it, you guys, but it keeps me in tune with like the experiences I'm having and the experiences that I want to have. So therefore I can recognize them easier and start to replicate them. I also think it's really cool in the Starbucks line or wherever you are to buy the coffee for the person behind you, because not only is it making their day, but it gives you a heightened endorphin reaction. And it's just a really nice thing to do for somebody. I've had that done to me several times, and then I've returned the favor, and it just puts you in a good mood. The other thing that I try to do, and I'm really bad at it, but I try to do more digital detoxes because I notice that I'm a lot more grounded. And when I do that ritualistically, I put myself in a position where I can be, more introspective in a good way, and focus on my day a little bit better.
Yeah.
And
Do you
then
mean
also,
like doing it daily, or do you take breaks like
I
during the
don't.
weekend or week?
I don't do it daily. I know a lot of people who do, and that works
Mhm.
for them, and that's great. But one of the things that I'm really passionate about is not forcing creativity. And there are days that I just genuinely like nothing's going to come out on the page. If you're somebody who needs routine, that's okay. You can literally write down whatever it is that comes out. But for me, I'd rather write something concerted that I've been thinking about than just force it. I think a lot of people do
Mhm.
though. Like it really is
Yeah.
just dependent.
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely is. Definitely.
Um, and then like on kind of in that vein, like the lost art of writing letters to people. Like, do you guys remember when we used to write letters to people?
Yeah, I
Used to be such
know.
a thing.
It was. And when you got a letter in the mail, you get all excited. It's like a little surprise.
I
Yeah,
know.
I
And
don't
now
remember like the last time I actually got a letter now that you say it. I'm gonna have to write one to
I
someone
know I'm
this
gonna
week.
write you one. Well,
Yeah,
now
okay.
mail is just like bills. Like, blah, who
I
wants that?
know. Yeah, exactly. We're gonna check the mail.
Okay, so
It's adult.
Michelle and I promise that we're gonna write more letters, guys, moving forward because it's
Yes,
really fun. Honestly, it's
it
so
is.
fun.
Yes,
Um,
it is. Actually, one thing I do though is I like to write like little like letters to my client. I feel like that like adds like personal touch as well. I
oh
think
yeah,
it's so important too. I think it shows kind of like how much you value people and care about them when you actually go through the whole process of writing a letter. It's much more personalized than just like sending out an email.
I agree wholeheartedly, guys. Like
Mhm.
honestly, the handwritten thank you note goes leaps and bounds. It's so much more effective than getting somebody a gift or sending
Right.
them an email.
Mhm.
Keep that in your back pocket if that's something that you're wanting to do to kind of cultivate relationships. Um, I mean, I do so many things. I'm not going to bore you guys with all of the enchanting rituals that I do within my life, but one of my favorite ones is like randomly, like maybe once a month or once every other month, not very often. I love croissants. Like I love them, but I try to
Mhm.
be super health conscious and there's like they're like completely void of nutritional value. So I don't make it a habit to eat them, but I
Mhm.
love like going to like my local coffee shop on like a random morning, grabbing a latte, grabbing a croissant. Like it just feels
Mhm.
like it's against the rules in a little bit of a
Yeah.
way. I don't know. It's just like so indulgent to me. I love it.
No, I love that too. I feel like it puts me in such a better mood, especially like on a Sunday morning. Like a slow Sunday morning, just going to like the little coffee shops. That's one thing I love. And like in my ritual is just like trying out like new little like coffee shops. I feel it's it's so much better like having your coffee outside
Oh my God.
versus
Yeah. I mean,
like making it.
like putting yourself in a position to eat outside, like anything where you can
Right.
have a backdrop like that. I
Yeah,
mean, that's massive.
it is. Yeah, it
Um,
definitely is.
And then another thing that I think is a little bit of a lost art is the nostalgia that's associated with like tapping into all of our senses.
Mhm.
So I try to do that more often and I try to travel in my brain in time or just like in setting through my senses. So for me, that's, pumpkin or vanilla candles in the fall,
Yeah.
peony candles in the spring, balsam candles in the winter. And
Mhm.
then, I switch up my perfumes as well to kind of recreate that nostalgia. Or like when it's raining outside, going and smelling that. Or the
Yeah.
smell that kind of is in the air whenever the seasons change,
Mhm.
or different, dishes that you may cook depending on the season.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever tried this, Mish, but I saw it on Instagram the other day. I've never done it before, where you basically like during Christmas time, you like bake or boil on the stovetop different like cinnamon sticks and etc. or
Mhm.
cranberry to like give that smell in the whole house.
Yeah. No, I have seen that before. I've never tried it though, but I do.
I want to
I
try it.
want to. Yeah, I do too, because that's like one of my most favorite smells. Kind of like you're saying, I feel like that and like the smell of like getting a Christmas tree outside, and then also some weird, but like the smell of like winter, like when it like snows. I know. Well, you're in Austin, so
don't know what that is.
don't get this too much. But I love so Chris, my boyfriend, thinks like I'm crazy because I love when it snows out. So I just feel like it's so like pretty and just like so cozy, and I feel like kind of like I romanticize it. It's like it kind of feels like you're in like an episode of like the Gilmore Girls or like in a good book. But
Okay.
I love that.
I was literally going to say, I'm so glad that you brought up the Gilmore Girls because I pretend like I'm in the Gilmore Girls all the time.
I do too. I wish I could live in like that little quaint town in Connecticut.
I know.
Sometimes. But then also I love the smell. It's gonna be weird, but like the smell of like fresh cut grass. I don't know why, but also like I feel like it takes me back to my childhood. And that might be also why I feel like, like happy memories of that. And then also I feel recently that I've been wanting to cook like dishes that my parents used to make. Like I would just like revert and I'm like, oh, like I have to make this tonight. It just like comes out of nowhere. Like I'll like taste it and like think about it. Like, okay, like I have to make this tonight. So
okay, I love that, you guys. So basically what we're saying, I know we're giving a lot of like examples for us of what works, but what we're saying is being cognizant and really tapping into your senses, because it really does open up a whole Pandora's box of possibilities. And it's really similar to like what we've talked about before with like don't future trip. It allows you to be super present in the moment and to have, gain appreciation for that moment. And I think that's a massive part about romanticizing your life is trying to be as present as you can.
Yeah. Have you ever like say like you're passing someone on the sidewalk and you get like a whiff of like their perfume or cologne and it like brings you back to like a time you could like actually like pinpoint it and think about it?
Yeah.
It's a lot. Mm-hmm.
It happens to me all the time. Like I think I'm so in tune with my sense of smell. And I forget about that sometimes. Like I truly forget that that is something that's a driver for me. And so now I do it on purpose. I try to recreate those moments.
I love that too. Yeah.
And I think, so it's funny, because I knew that we were doing this episode this week. So I actually chatted with one of my girlfriends who I've known her since I was 16 years old. One of my most amazing friends that exists. And I asked her, I was like, hey, I've got an outline of, what I want to talk about because I truly practice this every day. But like, how do you romanticize your life? And she told me something that really stuck with me because honestly, I do the same thing, but I don't think I was being as intentional about it as she is. And she said that she always puts herself, like when she's like on walks or when she's being introspective, she always puts herself in her shoes as a young person, as a young version of herself, like when she was a little girl. And she thinks about what that little girl would think if she saw her now. And it's kind of similar to like you're living out dreams that you were thinking about 5 years ago. And she said that she would like that young version of herself would think, wow, she's so accomplished. She's so pretty. She's so fun. She's got an amazing support system. She's surrounded by people that love her and that she loves. And I think sometimes when times get tough, you forget about those things. But I feel the same. Like when I go back and think about me as a youth, if you will, I don't have any of the expectations for my life to be looking the way that it looks now. So that's something to me that I think is really fun. And I would advise you guys to do that is think about yourself, retrospectively, where you've come from and how far you've come.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've had a similar reaction.
Yeah. No, I feel like, there are moments when like I'll do the same. Like I'll think about it and be like, like younger me would be like so proud of the person that I am today and like the woman that I am and empowering other women to feel that way. So yeah, definitely have had that.
Yeah, for sure. Also, guys, this is like maybe unique to me, but I think everybody could learn from it. When I'm trying to romanticize my life, I pretend I'm in a movie. Like straight up, like we were talking earlier about pretending like we're in Gilmore Girls. I create montages, like when I'm cleaning the kitchen of me, like in my headphones, running around, dancing, putting things away, like, or, walking down the street with my latte and thinking about like the New York City scene in the movie where they cut to the fabulous woman who's doing the most. Like I do that in my brain whenever I'm just existing in my everyday life. I pretend that I'm in a movie and I do that so that I can exhibit main character energy.
I love that.
Sometimes
I need to try that.
No, you should. And sometimes I'm like, I'll do something that I'm like, God, Jenny, like I thought you've grown past this. Like, why are you so upset about this? Or why are you like beating this to death in your head? And I'm like, am I exhibiting main character energy? Would a main character be doing this? Would she be having this montage? And if the answer is no, then I can immediately shift my mindset. You've got to be the central figure in your own life, you know?
Yeah. No, you definitely do.
And then, you know, also reading for me, we've talked about that on this as well. So a tactical tip with regard to reading is instead of just reading in your bed or on your couch or wherever you normally would, go somewhere scenic. Whether that's the park down the street, whether that's the pool, whether that's your backyard, whatever it is. But I have found when I read in those moments or in those environments is that, you know, it's a couple things. I have higher concentration. I have a better imagination and a heightened sense of wonder. And I retain things better. Yeah. I really do.
I do too. Yeah. I used to always, when I was studying for some of my exams, I would go down like to the river and study there. And I felt that like on the test day, I could actually like envision myself back in that spot. And I don't know why, but it just like came, like the material came back more naturally to me. So definitely have like a higher sense of concentration and also like retain things better when you're doing that.
I love that.
Yeah. I think it's also like I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but I mean, I don't think I've ever tried it, but they say that if you like spray a smell, like say like while you're studying for an exam or before an exam, and when you like go take it and like you think about that smell, for some reason, like the material comes back to you as well.
I never heard of that. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's like something like with a scent, like which, you know, we were talking about like all these like different scents taking us back to, you know, maybe when we were younger and happier times. And I've heard that. And I'm like, I definitely need to try this.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna, and I believe it, right? Because nostalgia is definitely tied to those senses, especially our sense of smell.
Exactly.
You know, what our parents used to make for us or our grandparents even, and kind of like those smells filling the house. And so it's just being intentional about that, right? It's just like trying to recreate that in your brain when you can.
Yeah.
And I think one of the central themes throughout what Michelle and I have been talking about for the majority of the podcast is like reverting back to childhood. So many times, and it's starting to catch traction, and I'm grateful. So many times people say, when you're looking for happiness or you're in the pursuit of something that is going to enhance your life, like think about how that activity correlates to what made you happy as a kid. And that can happen so much even like within our career. Like what did we like to do as a kid versus what do we like to do now? And I try my best. I'm, you know, not perfect at it, but I try my best to recreate those things in my life now. What it is that made me happy. Like we played dress up. I still like to do that. We did makeup. I still like to do that. I like to reintroduce playful activities into my life as often as I can. So like whether that's board games, puzzles. This past weekend we were doing Camp Bachelorette. So we did like we divided into teams and we played like we did a 3-legged race. We did tug of war. We did a sack race. We did I'm trying to think of all the games we played. There were so many games and it was so much fun.
I love, you know, like say like if you're like hanging out with like your friends or your family, like just like playing games or like board games. I love it. I get really competitive though, but
oh my God,
I do love it. Yeah. But actually this past weekend, you're talking about, so when I was younger, you know, I used to play sports. I love playing basketball. And actually this weekend I played basketball. It's like, oh my God, I love this. Like I need to start doing this more.
Yeah. And like, and I think that's what the country's fascination with pickleball is, right? Like we're all just like trying to revert back to like what we thought was fun when we were kids.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that. And I think too, we've talked before about the Barbie movie and how I was just like grinning from ear to ear when we were watching it because it just reminded me of being a kid.
I know, me too. I actually saw it this and yeah, I loved it. And I almost I felt like on the verge of tears sometimes at moments.
Yeah.
Where they were just like thinking like all like the things that they were saying, and also like, you know, like just thinking about myself as a child, like, and how happy like having a Barbie used to make me.
I love that. And I think that was the point of the movie, right? To tap into that.
Yeah.
And I think
it definitely was.
It's good to do that, right? It's good to like think about that and ask yourself, like, how can I recreate this, this feeling that I have? It's like you want to bottle it up and you want to keep it forever. And we're here to tell you that you can recreate those little sparks and moments of joy.
Yes.
As long as you're, you know, cognizant of it. So
no, definitely.
And I know briefly we've talked about this a little, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but for me, and we're going to talk a lot about this next week. We're talking about, you know, the changing of the seasons and how to really play into that and maximize it. But one thing I like to do is I like to make a huge deal out of seasonal changes. So I will drink the pumpkin in the fall. I'll drink the peppermint in the winter, like, you know, or whatever it is that you like, sub in just something festive. And I make you know how like every day now is like National Something Day?
Yeah.
I make a huge deal out of like the stupidest little thing. Like it was like National French Wine Day a couple weeks ago. And Mitch and I went to like a renowned wine shop that you could sit down in, and we ordered the best champagne they had and French fries.
Oh,
because I was like, it's National French Wine Day.
Yeah, you have to.
And there's literally nothing better as a pairing than French fries and champagne. So
yes. No, I do this. So let me tell you, I am the most like basic person when it comes to pumpkin. And I get this from my dad. So my dad texts me every day on when Dunkin' comes out with pumpkin. And he's like the first one in line to get his pumpkin coffee. And he will buy anything pumpkin. So like you have to see, like when I go visit him, his like during the fall, like his whole fridge is stocked with fall items and like pumpkin everything. Yeah, it's so funny. I think definitely that's where I get it. And my love for fall. But also like I remember like I said to him one day, like, what, like, you know, how come you had to buy all this pumpkin? He was just like kind of like reminding me, I guess it's a time that makes him happy as well. I think like when he was growing up, you know, him and his, you know, parents and then his siblings used to do like so many like fall fun activities. So he says like it brings him back to like hanging out with his parents and all the siblings just doing fun things. I'm like, you know what? Probably same for me, because I like have the memories of like going apple picking and pumpkin picking and going upstate every weekend. So he is definitely where I get it from. So I'm on that. I'm not so much a peppermint person though in winter. But
yeah, I mean, I said peppermint, but like in retrospect, it's more like salted caramel.
Okay. You know what actually else I like to do? I actually bought one today, but like my hand soaps that I have in my bathroom. So every season I get a new one. So I bought my fall one today from Target. I'm very excited to start using it. I actually bought my first pumpkin of the season.
Oh my God, that's great.
Like one of the little ones from Target, but
I actually bought a pumpkin too when I put it on the couch table.
Oh, look at that.
I love it. Yeah. So like
next week,
refreshing your home.
Yeah, exactly. Next week, I'm going to be all fall.
I'm so excited for that.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Okay, guys, we're getting down to the wire, but our last tip is cultivating new hobbies. And this is something that I am very rigid about. Like, I think everybody should have hobbies. I used to think I didn't have time for hobbies. That is a lie. You have time for hobbies. I know that everybody crashes and burns, even if you work really hard and watches Netflix. So you could be spending some of that time, you know, cultivating your hobbies. And for me, you know, it's a moving target, and I don't always have dedicated hobby time, but I really try to. And my latest hyperfixation / hobby was wine. And it's been like the most fun journey to learn all about it. And I feel like it has so much applicability in my life now. And I'm so grateful that I took the time to learn about it, because I never would have otherwise. And I feel like it just enhances my life in so many ways. And there's been other hobbies that I've picked up and cultivated over the years. But I just think that it really rounds us better as people, and it puts us in a place where we can escape maybe some negative head talk, in the confines of our daily routines.
Definitely, yes. My new hobby is definitely pickleball and tennis.
Love.
And yes, I've been studying it and trying to learn so much. Like I used to play tennis when I was younger, but I haven't really in the past few years. And my boyfriend is a big tennis player, and he like is in a league and he plays like all these matches and things. I'm like, I need to get back into it. And then this past week, I was like, okay, I really need to. So that's my new hobby.
I love it. I can't wait to learn because y'all, I just don't know if I'm athletic enough, but I'm going to give it a whirl.
No, you definitely are. You definitely are athletic enough. When I come down to Austin, we'll play. As long as it's I'm going to try that.
We have plenty of pickleball courts, so you'll be fine.
Good.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. I mean, essentially the central theme of this is we really want everyone, including ourselves, because we have to hold everyone accountable to it, to slow down and take everything in, appreciate the little things in life, and make sure that we're really living to those maximums. And I find that, another, quick thing with regard to romanticizing your life, I know that sometimes your problems can feel insurmountable and you can feel like you're just so rooted in the mundane day in and day out. But if you just like implement some of these habits or, take some time to spend some time outside in nature, I promise it's going to make those problems feel small. And I promise you're going to at least you're gonna spark joy, right? Which is the point of romanticizing your life. And it's something that we have control over. I don't think we have control over a lot, but this is something that we can actively control. And I'm really passionate about it. And I really love doing it in my life. And I hope that some of these tips were helpful for you guys.
Mm-hmm. They definitely were for me. I agree with everything you said. And we'd love to hear from you guys, how the little things you do during the day to romanticize your life. So
absolutely.
Just let us know. We love to hear it.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Subscribe to our channel. Leave us any comments. We want to know more. Obviously, there's like no, limit on how much we can romanticize our lives. Right. So if you guys have tips that we didn't cover, we are all ears. We will see you guys next week. We're going to talk to you guys about the changing of the seasons.
Enjoy the rest of your Wine Wednesday. See you guys next week.
Bye, guys.